Hey guys, welcome back for a quick video here. Just going to show you how I transfer my Citadel paints to dropper bottles. I know some of you like to do this, some of you are against doing this. It's all down to personal preference, and personally I like the dropper bottles. So I'm just showing you here that I'm going to be using a brand new pot of Avalon Sunset from Citadel. This is a base paint. I've got a dropper bottle of water here. This just makes for thinning the paint in the pot a little bit easier. And you can see there I've got a 15ml bottle with spout and cap. I'll put a link down in the description for these so you can find them on Amazon. And here I've also got some 6ml plastic beads. This is just a cheap set again off of Amazon. Jewelry beads with a little hole in the middle. But you know, they're not going to break. The plastic bottles, dropper bottles, are fairly soft, and it's just mixing in paint, so you're not going to be shaking these hard enough to break the plastic bead, and it's not going to break down in the paint or anything, so no worries there. So after giving that a shake, I'm now taking a paintbrush. You can use any old cheap paintbrush for this, and I'm just using this to remove the paint from the tongue in the pot here. And this is because I don't cut the tongues off, or the lids off of my pots, as I will keep them for making up custom washes, or otherwise I'll just bin them. You can cut them and remove them if you want, but personally I don't find any need. Now I'm just squeezing the dropper bottle here to remove some air from the bottle, and this is just in case the paint is too thick. It can clog up the neck of the bottle, and if you haven't got the bottle pressed, then it's going to clog up and you won't be able to remove it, because if you squeeze the bottle, it's going to force the air out of the bottle through the paint, which will cause the paint to spit out of the neck. So by squeezing the bottle, if the neck clogs up, you can release the squeeze and it will suck air in along with that paint. Luckily with the Avalon Sunset here, it's nice and thin. I find that Games Workshop consistency in paints tend to vary a little bit. Base paints are supposed to be thicker, although I found a few of them to be thinner than layer paints, and vice versa. Layer paints are generally a little bit thinner, but I have had some thicker ones, as you will see in a few minutes when I show you another pot. So now that I've got the majority of the paint removed, I'm just going to squirt in about 3, maybe 4 ml of water, not too much, just enough to be able to shake the bottle and try and thin down the paint that is stuck to the walls of the bottle. Give it a good shake with the bead still in there, and this will help remove some of that paint from the walls, thin it down, and then again pour that into the dropper bottle. Now you'll notice I don't need to use any funnels here. As long as you're careful, you hold both bottles, again making sure to squeeze that dropper bottle. Just pour it in. The only thing I would say to be careful of is the bead with thicker paints tends to sit on top of the paint and will roll out as the paint pours out. But with the thinner paints, it sits at the bottom and catches on the slight indentation of the neck on the Citadel bottle. Once that paint's removed, I then close the cap slightly. I will tip the bottle upside down and give it a little bit of a shake just to get the bead to fall onto the tongue. So there you go, you can see that there. Twist the cap sideways, and now all I've got to do is just angle that and get the bead to fall into the dropper bottle. So there you go, one paint done, nice and easy, no mess, no fuss. Put in the spout. Screw on the cap, make sure that's on nice and tight, and then remove the label. Now if, unlike me, you do not bite your nails, this shouldn't be too much of a problem. Nasty habit, but you know, I've been doing it for years and just can't stop. So remove the label anyway and fix that on, and once that's done, get it nice and smooth. You could trim it down if you want to. I just fold it over at the back, overlap them, and give it a good shake, and there we go. One dropper bottle of Avalon Sunset. Next up, I'll show you how to do this with Scrag Brown, and you'll note that this is a layer paint, but it is actually going to be thicker than the Avalon Sunset. So the whole thick for base, thinner for layer doesn't always tend to apply. So again, I'm scraping the paint off the lid here. Didn't really need to do it at this stage as I haven't added the bead. I don't believe I may have added it. Yep, no, I'd already added the bead, shaking it up. So just removing the paint from the tongue. And again, you could remove it by clipping the hinges off there. I keep it on. Squeeze the bottle and pour. Now this is a thicker paint, so what I was saying about earlier, the importance of squeezing the dropper bottle, I'll actually be able to show you here. You can see that as it touches the sides, I do try to do this deliberately, it doesn't go too well, but what can happen is the paint can clog up in that neck because it will touch the two sides, form a little air trap, and then the paint will sit on top of itself, and you'll just end up spilling the paint. As soon as you notice that happening, here we go, stop the paint and let go of the dropper bottle. That will suck the air in, squeeze back again, and you can remove some of that air, and there you go, continue pouring. And like I said before, if you don't have the dropper bottle squeezed and you squeeze it once that is clogged up, you're going to spit paint everywhere. It's important to make sure that you are squeezing that dropper bottle just enough that when you release it, it's going to suck the air and the paint in. So again, remove as much of the paint as you can without adding any water or thinners, you know, whatever it is you want to add. I recommend water just because it can evaporate easier. So if you add a little bit too much, you can leave the paint to settle for a couple of days, remove the lid and the spout, leave it for about an hour, and some of that water will evaporate. Or you could just let it sit and then squeeze some of that water out. The thinner doesn't tend to separate from the paint as much, so if you add too much, you're stuck with it in the paint. So again, just a little bit of water, give it a good shake, and pour the slightly thinned down. Again, you can see this is still fairly thick. I'd say about the consistency of what you would expect a layered paint to be, maybe a little bit thinner. So I will get the remaining of this out, and then again add a little bit more water. I try not to add any more than 5 ml of water. Ideally you want about 3, maybe 4 ml. So not a lot, just a quick squirt in the bottom, keeping that bead in there, and give it a shake to get that paint off the sides. So again, just a quick squirt, not a lot of water there. Give it a shake, and then you'll notice that this will be a bit thinner this time, but because the paint in the bottle is all neat, it's still thick, so it's not going to dilute it down as much as if you thinned it down at the start. The problem with, I see a lot of people thinning the paint before they've poured anything out. Yes, that will thin the paint and make it easier to pour, but then you need to add more thinner to remove the last bit of paint that is still in the pot. So I recommend struggling a little bit at the start, removing that, you know, the thicker paint. It's not so thick that you can't remove it. If it is, then your paint is, you know, then thin the paint down. But if it pours and you can get it out, do it without thinning it. Then thin that last remaining little bit, just to get the colour off the sides of the pot, and you're good to go. So again, add the spout, add the cap, and you can see here that these are 15ml bottles and they're almost full, with me adding about 4 to 5 ml of water. So it questions how much paint is actually in the Citadel pots. It's probably not quite 12 ml like they claim. Obviously some paint is left in the pot, but I wouldn't say, you know, that much. But you do end up with about 14-15 ml of paint, so you know it's all good. Add the label, give it a shake, and you're good to go. No funnels, no fuss, easy. So that's the end of today's video, guys. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, keep painting those minis.